Welcome back to Just Scribble for a follow-up on my rental from the Planner Exchange and my final thoughts on the VDS Codex that I had rented from the Planner Exchange. If you haven't checked out my first video on the Planner Exchange, I'm going to put it in a card up here and I will link it down in the description box as well. A few questions came up from viewers on my initial video, and so I wanted to address those questions first and then we will get into my final thoughts. So the first had to do with international customers and whether or not the rental program and purchases from the Planner Exchange were open to international customers. So from a rental perspective, it is only open to US and Puerto Rico residents. But as a buyer, if you found a notebook on their site and you wanted to buy it outright, that is open internationally. However, only US, Puerto Rico, and Canada can do that directly through the website. If you are outside of any of those countries and you were wanting to purchase one of these notebooks, you would need to contact them through their email address and inquire about the shipping costs and all of that. There is some limitation right now with shipping from the US to certain countries because of the pandemic, and so there are some restrictions as far as that goes, but ignoring that, they can ship to your country. It's just a matter of calculating the exact shipping cost and doing the contract and the payment, etc., through email instead of through the website. That was the first question, was about international, if it was open internationally. The second had to do with cleaning the notebooks, particularly because of the pandemic right now. So the knit pouch that you get, which this is the one that came with my codex, that you get to carry it around in as you are using it for the 14-day rental period, and the travel bag that it comes in your mailer, those get Lysoled when they get back to the Planner Exchange, and they get aired out for 48 hours. As far as the leather covers go, if it is a leather that can be cleaned, some examples are the Napa, the Touch Me, Ostrich, things like that, they do wipe them down with wet ones or with baby wipes and clean them, and then they let them air dry. For those that are made out of a leather that you can't clean, so things like Apoca and Janet, those are left to air out for 5 days because they can't actually wipe them down with something to remove germs. That same process of cleaning the notebooks and or airing them out is done when they buy a notebook to add to the site as well. So when they buy a pre-owned notebook to add to the site as a rental and purchase option, they go through that same process for cleaning them. And then the other question that you guys asked was about extreme wear and tear. So it is expected that there will be some scratches and markings from using the rental during the rental period. But if you do cause extreme wear and tear to the notebook, which means that it's no longer sellable, then you will be responsible for buying the notebook. So if it were to get chewed up by your dog, or you were to spill an entire margarita on the notebook, something that ruins the notebook, it is kind of a you break it, you buy it policy. So those are the questions that you guys had asked after the first video that I wanted to cover in this video so that you had all the information that you needed to determine if this service was something that you wanted to try out. So I wanted to give you my final thoughts on the Planner Exchange service, the time period, and all of that. So when you get your rental, it starts the day after you receive it. You get it for 14 days and then you mail it back. And for me personally, the 14-day window was plenty of time to determine if the size was good for me, because I decided to rent something in a size I haven't used in a very long time and that I am not using for my planner or journal currently. And so it was enough time for me to figure out that the A6 size, which I used to use as my planner and actually really enjoyed, is not for me. And I didn't enjoy writing in it, journaling in it, or planning in it. And so the 14 days was plenty of time for me to make that determination that it was not for me. It was also plenty of time for me to decide what I thought about the leather and the craftsmanship of the notebook. I decided within less than 14, actually probably within 3 or 4 days, that I do love the craftsmanship of the Vanderspec, that I really love the undyed Janet leather. The brown Janet leather is fine too, but the undyed is what I really wanted to see and test out, and I really, really do love it. And so I did figure that out, and I also figured out certain attributes of this custom notebook that weren't for me and certain attributes that were for me. And so for me, the 14-day period was the perfect amount of time for that. I will say that This pouch, the knit pouch that you use to carry your notebook around in, is super helpful for ensuring that the notebook stays safe and that you don't have extreme wear and tear during your rental process. It was very strange for me to keep it in this knit pouch and to be so super careful with it. I am not super careful with my notebooks. Leather is super strong and super durable, and it's meant to be used. And I actually love when it changes, scratches, marks, patinas, and develops as you've used it. And so I tend to just toss my notebooks onto the couch or in and out of a tote bag or into my passenger seat, or toss it onto my desk where I have staplers and scissors and pens and binder clips and all of that. And so the process of taking it in and out of the knit bag and keeping it protected all the time, that was a little bit strange for me, but it was good for the rental process. So I understand why you do it, and I think it was a good thing to do. It was just something that felt kind of weird to me. I also did notice that I was more careful with this notebook than I am with notebooks I own, because I knew that I was not keeping this notebook, because even if the size had ended up being for me, I was not wanting the brown Janet leather on the outside. I was wanting one that was undyed completely. And so I knew that I wasn't going to end up purchasing the notebook. And so because of that, I was super, super careful with it when I was using it. The one thing is, I did not feel comfortable moving into it completely and sort of customizing it to be my own. So I didn't feel comfortable putting any sort of decor, paper clips, things like that in it. I also didn't want to stick a bunch of things in the different pockets, because this does have quite a few pockets. It has a back pocket, it has a pocket here, it has a pocket here, it has a pocket there, all of these pockets, and then it has a pocket here and here. I didn't feel comfortable sticking stuff in there because I was afraid I would forget to take something out and I would end up returning the rental with something in it. So that was one thing that I felt while using the notebook. So that's kind of the rental process and how I felt about the process. And then I wanted to touch briefly on the codex itself and my thoughts on it. So I'm going to take the Stalogy that I was using out of it, and I'm going to take my pen out of it and just go through some of the features that I liked and did not like. So I am not a fan of the back pocket. This is the second notebook I've actually tried with a back pocket, and in concept they seem awesome to me because, you know, you have a larger space to put a piece of paper. So if you got a letter size piece of paper and you needed to keep it, you could stick it back there. But for me, I didn't like the way that the notebook laid. Because of that back pocket, it kind of causes a little bit of a hump or a bump. I also didn't like the way it felt when I was carrying it as much, because it does have this secondary layer. And so for me, that wasn't something that was comfortable. And I also know that I actually wouldn't want to put stuff back here. It would bulk up my notebook, and it's also just some place to stick stuff that goes there and gets messy and never really gets used. For me, I would not want the back pocket. I did like all of these sort of slip pocket options that it had, because there was a lot of space for storage. The only thing I'm not super a fan of is that on the interior of the pockets, if you can see that, it's not fully leather. It is lined with sort of a fabric. That's something that's different for me, since I primarily use folios and traveler's notebooks that are made solely of leather. That was a little bit funky, and I don't know if that is always the process or if that's because this one was made with the back pocket, which has this sort of, I guess it's a leather, but it has this secondary interior in it. And so I wasn't sure if that's a standard thing for VDS Codex or not. I do like the depth of this pocket over here. So this is their business card, which I can show you so you have their contact information. But it fits nicely there, so you stick a stencil or a washi card or something like that in there, and that worked very nicely. But I was not a fan of this pocket configuration. If you watch Bunny Plans on YouTube, she has a B6 Codex, which would be the size I would be buying if I bought one. And she has a different pocket configuration. She has the A5 pocket configuration on it, and I like that pocket configuration better. So if that's something that I could order, that's what I would order for myself. Partly, I don't need all of these card slots like this. I don't use my planner as my wallet. I keep it separately in a zipper wallet from Chic Sparrow or in a Passport traveler's notebook. And so I don't need all these credit card slots like this. Instead, I need space for washi cards or Post-it notes, things like that. And so that other pocket configuration would work better for me. I also find that they are quite deep. This is a white card that's the size of a credit card. And so barely anything of your card would stick out. So they seem a little bit deep to me, and it's more than I would personally need. But I also do not understand the function of this short pocket here. I don't think that I have anything that I would ever keep in this pocket. And so for me, this pocket configuration wasn't quite right. So I would definitely want to change that. The closure actually was very nice. The snap worked really well. I like that it's chunky, but not too chunky. I like that it doesn't have any hardware on it. It's very plain and simple. And it had plenty of space for my Stylogy to grow, which I also appreciated. I like the pen loop with the elastic, but it's still not quite big enough. So if I ordered one, if I could get it slightly larger, that would be better because it fits this pen very well, but I don't generally carry a pen that's this thin. And so it would be hard to get in and out most of the pens that I use and prefer to use, especially my fountain pens. I did find it interesting that there's no indication on the outside of the Codex that it is a Vanderspec. The only branding is this little tag right here, which I just thought was super classy and minimal, but definitely very different for me because I do buy traveler's notebooks that always have, or almost always have, some sort of stamp on them that indicates the brand on the exterior. But overall, I was really, really happy with the product, and I was really, really happy with the quality, and I really enjoyed the rental program because for me personally, I would not ever probably invest in a Vanderspec because of the price without having seen and touched one in person. Seeing them on videos is not always super, super helpful, and I'm not familiar enough to know if I would be able to resell them and get all of my money back, and it would be frustrating to order one and wait the time period for the custom Codex and then to be super disappointed and then to have to try to sell it. For me, other things like Chic Sparrow and Sojourner, if I buy them, the investment is not as expensive. And so I don't mind investing because I do know that I can turn around and sell them easily and quickly and get my money back. But this is a large investment, multiple times what I would pay for a Chic Sparrow or a Sojourner, even in like a larger A5 size. And so it's a large investment for me with the risk of not loving it. So I was glad I was able to see the leather in person, try it out, see how it feels, see the configuration in person, because it is something that is different than traveler's notebooks, and it is more complicated in design than a traveler's notebook. And so I really appreciated that. So for me, that's the benefit of the planner exchange. If I was going to invest in or thinking of investing in a more expensive, a very high-end planner, be it rings or folio or even a traveler's notebook, if I was going to be investing hundreds of dollars or several hundreds of dollars into it, I think this is worth it, especially if the one that you're looking at is the one that they have on their site. If this had been the B6 size with the undyed in the front and the back, and it was completely configured, even if it was in this setup, which may have not been my ideal pocket setup, I may have ended up buying it during the rental period because I really, really love the leather. I love the quality. It would be a size that I use and a size that I found that I loved. And so it would be kind of perfect, and it would be immediate too, which is nice because we all love instant gratification, right? So for me, for high-end notebooks, I think this service is great. For me personally, for some of the less expensive brands, I wouldn't probably use this rental service because for me, that monetary investment isn't a big deal, and I also know that I can get the money back. So it really depends on you and your personal situation and also what you're testing out. But overall, I really liked the service. It was super easy. This notebook is now empty. There is nothing in it. It is going to be closed up, put back in its knit bag, and then put back in its travel bag. And I will be packaging it up and sending it back to the planner exchange with the postage paid envelope that they provided to me so that I can send it back, and it will be back to them. And then I will start looking into the customizations that I would like in order to buy a codex for myself in the B6 size. I do hope you liked this follow-up video to the planner exchange process and my thoughts and feelings at the end of the rental period, and that you enjoyed my first video sharing their services as well. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to comment below. Make sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss future videos. Give me a thumbs up if you liked this one, and don't forget to just scribble.